Holy shit! Happy Day of Retribution, everyone! Today marks the 3-year anniversary of when Saint Elliot fought back against the twisted world that had rejected him. I was going to celebrate with my family again this year, but my grandma said something about getting revenge on the people who rejected playing dominoes with her at the old folks' home, so I guess this video will have to do. We all know the tale of Elliot Rodger and his Day of Retribution. The stabbing of his roommates, the shootout on the streets of Isla Vista, the noble sacrifice Elliot had to make when cornered by police. But what most people don't know is that this isn't how the Day of Retribution was meant to go down at all. In his manifesto, My Twisted World, Elliot details a 3-phase plan for his monumental day that truly would have been a sight to behold. Today we're going to compare and contrast these 2 days of retribution. The one that Elliot meticulously planned, and the one that actually happened. Phase 0. Preparations. In his manifesto, Elliot lays out 3 phases of vengeance for his Day of Retribution, but I would also throw in a Phase 0 to include his preparations. Each phase gets crazier than the last, so you're probably gonna want to take some Xanax and Vicodin right about now. This phase takes place at Elliot's father's house, but that doesn't mean there won't be any bloodshed. On the morning before the Day of Retribution, Elliot's plans at his father's house were threefold. Kill his bitchy stepmother Sumaya, kill his younger brother Jazz, and steal his father's Mercedes SUV to use as a ramming machine in Phase 3. It's no question why Elliot wanted to kill his stepmother. That bitch treated him like shit his entire life and essentially stole his father's attention away from him. But his desire to kill his preteen brother Jazz is an entirely different story. Elliot explains himself in his manifesto by saying, "I realized how much different my brother Jazz was from me at that age. While I was shy, short, and physically weak, Jazz was tall for his age and very social. He had no problem going up to other boys at the playground and making instant friends. I began to form a bitter envy towards him, though I hid it really well. My little brother had all the potential to grow up to be a popular kid and live the life I was never able to live. I cursed the world for granting my little brother Jazz so many more advantages than me. That was the day that I decided I would have to kill him on the Day of Retribution. I will not allow the boy to surpass me at everything, to live the life I've always wanted. It's not fair that he has the chance to have a pleasurable life while I've been denied it. It will be a hard thing to do, because I had really bonded with my little brother in the last year, and he respected and looked up to me. But I would have to do it. If I can't live a pleasurable life, then neither will he. I will not let him put my legacy to shame." In essence, Elliot wanted to kill his 8-year-old brother because he was envious of the boy's social abilities and worried that he would one day grow up to surpass him. So that was Elliot's plan for Phase 0, but how much of it actually happened? Well, none of it. Elliot didn't even steal his father's Mercedes SUV, and instead committed his attack with the BMW coupe that his parents had bought for him. In his manifesto, Elliot seemed so gung-ho about killing his stepmother and brother, so why didn't he do it? Elliot explains the one possible reason why this section of the plan might fail. "My father will be away on one of his business trips, so thankfully I won't have to deal with him. If he didn't go away on that trip, I might even have to postpone the whole plan because of my fear that I might hesitate if I have to kill him." Despite all the ups and downs of their relationship, Elliot still cared deeply about his father and knew he wouldn't be able to kill him. So, when Elliot's father stayed home from a business trip that week, Elliot had no choice but to cancel this part of his plan. Peter Rodger had no way of knowing this at the time, but by staying home that week, he saved the lives of both his wife and his son. Phase 1. Torture Chamber. Phase 1 of Elliot's Day of Retribution is where his mistakes rise to the level of absurdity. The idea for this phase seems pretty simple in concept. Elliot wants to torture and kill as many UCSB students as possible as a means of revenge for their perceived social rejection of him. Specifically, he wants to target the beautiful people because he assumes they're the ones who had the best sex lives. Elliot explains this train of thought. I will start luring people into my apartment, knock them out with a hammer, and slit their throats. I will torture some of the good-looking people before I kill them, assuming that the good-looking ones had the best sex lives. All of that pleasure they had in life, I will punish by bringing them pain and suffering. I have lived a life of pain and suffering, and it was time to bring that pain to people who actually deserve it. I will cut them, flay them, strip all the skin off their flesh, and pour boiling water all over them while they are still alive, as well as any other form of torture I could possibly think of. After killing these people in his apartment, Elliot intended to saw off their heads and keep the heads in a bag to be used in the final phase of his retribution. But we'll get into that later. Phase 1 seems to be a go, but there's a slight wrinkle in this torture chamber plan. Elliot has 2 roommates, a pair of nerdy Asian boys, and obviously he wouldn't be able to use his apartment as a torture chamber if they were still alive. So he decides he needs to stab them to death in their sleep. But then, on the night that Elliot planned on killing the 2 of them, his roommates were having a friend named David Wang staying the night too. So Elliot had no choice but to kill this random 3rd person as well. This is when things start to get weird. In his manifesto, Elliot claims he wanted to kill his roommates the day before the day of retribution so that he could use the apartment as a torture chamber. But in reality, he stabbed his roommates on the day of retribution, 3 hours prior to the shooting. According to the autopsy report, George Chen was stabbed 94 fucking times. And all 3 boys were stabbed multiple times in the head, neck, chest, arms, hands, and back. In total, Elliot stabbed these guys nearly 140 times. So there Elliot was. His nerdy roommates were dead, and he finally had the apartment to himself so that he could torture the beautiful, sex-having students of Isla Vista. And he didn't do it. He either chickened out or found that cleaning the blood from a triple homicide was going to be too much work, and he skipped the rest of Phase 1 altogether. Those 3 nerdy Asians died for literally no reason. And if you're wondering why I keep mentioning that these victims were Asian and nerdy, it's because the whole point of Elliot's retribution was to get revenge against the popular, beautiful blonde people of the world. And instead, he managed to kill 3 people who were just like him, Asian and nerdy. This begs the question, why? Why the fuck? If the whole point of killing these men was to give him the apartment to himself, then why did Elliot kill them when he had already run out of time to run his torture chamber? For whatever reason, he was unable to kill them in their sleep the night before like he was originally planning, so why kill them 3 hours prior to the shooting? We have no way of knowing for sure what happened in that apartment, but investigators have been able to make a handful of theories based on evidence found at the scene. Faint bloodstains in the main hallway of the apartment indicate at least one of the victims had been attacked as he entered the apartment. Authorities later said that the presence of a blood-soaked bath towel and paper towels in the bathroom suggests Rodger had attempted to clean the hallway after each murder. The bodies of Wang and Hong were found in their shared bedroom, whereas Chen's body was found in the bathroom. The positioning of the bodies suggested each victim had entered the apartment separately before being murdered, and that Rodger had made efforts to conceal the bodies of the first 2 victims by covering them with blankets, towels, and clothing. Police removed a knife, a hammer, and 2 machetes from the apartment, but they later determined that 2 knives recovered from a backpack found in Rodger's car were the weapons used to kill the apartment victims. There you have it. For Phase 1 of Elliot's retribution, he intended to torture and kill beautiful people who had lived lives that he could only dream of, and instead he managed to kill 3 men who were in a similar position to his own. For those of you keeping track at home, both of Elliot's planned phases have been colossal fucking failures thus far. But don't worry, he somehow fucks up phase 2 even worse.
Continued in part 2.
This one goes out to my main man, Rodgers. I'm sorry that you had that weak bitch of a father. Too much intelligence to turn into a Chad. I'm sorry for all the sex and love you never had. Rodgers, born and raised within a twisted world. 22 years.